Nation, welcome to our weekly podcast, the Hump Day Holler. Hey, on the show today, we've been talking about down payments and really how you can get into a house for a lot cheaper. We've been preaching this to you for over a year on make smaller down payments, sort of the marry the house, date the rate, because we know a lot of what's going on right now is temporary. So we're going to talk about that. And then also, you got to make sure right now that you're working with folks who are giving you good advice and really who sort of know what the programs are and what kind of stuff can be done. So, welcome in James Parker. James, I know you got your fans that come with you every single week, always clapping. How you doing today, sir?
Yeah, and I'm amazed how this crowd of very real people can clap the exact same way every time. It's
Every time. It's absolutely amazing, man. So look, a couple things happened since Saturday, right? So what we're waiting on this week, Dave, we're going to have some numbers come up. The PCE, which is another inflation category or another factor, another outlet that'll give us some ideas on where we're at with inflation. Those numbers are going to come out. I don't expect to see anything that's going to be mind boggling or anything that's going to be earth shattering. I think the biggest thing, what we're watching right now, we saw and we discussed it on Saturday with the rates kind of coming down. They're flat right now for the week. Is the fact that these banks and what's going on with these banks, a lot of people are scared, including myself, right? Hey, what do I do with my money? Where do I put my money? How do I handle my money? And I think people are realizing too that they're expecting more of this is going to have to happen. And what I mean by more of this is bank fallout, right? So, what is that? That's why there's so much, I think, fear. It's a matter of, I can't imagine the Fed's got to be waking up right now going, now what? Right? You've got a lot of these economists are saying if the Fed really was sticking to their guns, they should have raised the rate. That way you could find out really what banks are not doing things right instead of kind of giving them a pass here on different things. What's your thoughts, James? I mean, I think the 0.25, um, I think it was good. I think it shows the signs that the Fed realized they had to stop something, and what they've done is with this rush it has kind of jumped up on them. So I just want to get your thoughts, and then we're going to kind of talk about down payment and why right now we are seeing some people get some wins, even though those rates are still elevated, not where you want to be, but we'll talk about that uh, after. But I wanted to kind of get your thoughts, James, now that you've digested a little bit more of what the Fed did, and kind of what are you seeing? I know you kind of keep up with headlines and stuff like that. What are you seeing on your end, my man?
well, we're now a couple weeks into this, almost 3 weeks into this, and it looks like the bleeding has stopped. And because the concern was, well, Silicon Valley Bank falls, there could be some other banks fall, and then a couple more did. We had the second and then the third largest bank failure, and then a couple more on top of that, and then some little regional guys have closed their doors, and there was a lot more bleeding out there than in the headlines, and I think even that stuff that's sort of flying under the radar seems to have slowed. So there was a contagion. It was a little more widespread. It didn't get the media coverage. So that's what we're telling the guy listening that he doesn't already know. There were
Right.
a lot of banks that went under that didn't get reported because no one cares about the third state bank of Tulsa or,
Right.
Bug Tussle, Kansas or whatever. So that was going on for the last couple weeks, and that has seemed to stop. And there's still I like I don't enjoy watching the reverberations go through the markets, but I'm interested to see how now letters and emails are being sent to pensioners, letting them know that their check's going to be cut next year because the California Public Employees Pension Fund had like $60 million in SVB stock that just went to zero and isn't going to be covered by the FDIC. There's still
Right.
a lot of people who got hosed, even though some people got bailed out, which makes it all the more suspicious and political. But so my first reaction is the bleeding has stopped. There's still going to be other problems, from the wound, like infections, if you want to stretch this metaphor, that we're still watching, and a lot of other people are going to be hurting because of this. But first reaction is the bleeding has stopped.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think it's a wait and see, and I think really, for the next year and a half, I think this is sort of the environment we're going to be in, right? Everything is going to be a wait and see. These reports, these numbers that come out are going to hold weight. Maybe folks are figuring out that data does have a lag, right? Again, we kind of gave the analogy this past week of, it's not where you hit the ball. It's when and it's where does the ball go, right? You can't just go, hey, I'm going to hit the ball to center field. You got to have somebody out there that's going to catch that ball. And I think as we're looking at this, that's where I think the Fed has made the mistakes in the past. They're busy working on the today and the now and not seeing what all these hikes do for the future. So,
Well, I want to ask from the point of view of the mortgage guy, if
yeah.
there is more contagion, if there is more bank collapses and, fear starts going running rampant again, can't that be good for mortgage rates?
Well, it just depends because where are these investors, where is their money at, right? Where do they have their funds at, right? I mean, it's not like these investors just sit over on a big pile of cash who buy in these mortgages and buy these bonds and they go, all right, and they kind of go under their desk or go into their little cachet and go, all right, hey, here's 100 million, go buy some loans this month, right? So there's a trickle down effect, like you said. There's a lot. There's people now that just lost pensions. I mean, you start getting into Enron stuff. So there's a lot of scrambling behind the scenes, a lot of stepping on ant piles. So that is why, to be honest with you, why you did the initial when this came out, everything, and the Fed did their thing with the 25 basis points. It was like, okay, and the rates immediately dropped. And now they've sort of been flat this week, actually up a tad, right? Which is crazy because you go, how, right? How? They've got to have this figured out, but the facts are they don't. And it's like gas. I compare everything to gas prices. Quick to go up, slow to come down. So everybody right now is jockeying. Where are we going to be, right? Makes sense right now. Why would I not buy 10-year treasuries right now? But do I want to get burnt? Do I want to get burnt? And you could see it when you go look at 6-year CDs. Even the banks don't know right now. That's why they're giving you more money on a short term than they are on a long term because they don't know. So they're trying to capitalize as much as they can that they're giving you 4.75, 5% on a 6-month CD right now versus a 2 years at 3.25, 3.5, right? So you've got to look at because they don't know. And what's the last thing they want to do? They don't want to get stuck holding Parker's couple $100,000 at 4.75 and they can't go use Parker's money and make money on it. And I think that's where, so as a mortgage, man, look, this is in 30 years, it is crazy. Normally the forest through the trees, all that stuff, you could kind of see it. And now you've got to just juggle it. Here's what we do know, though. Purchasing a home is still a good investment, right? At the end of the day. And that kind of leads me into, James, what we've been telling people for the last year, right? Lower down payments, right? And when you come to that time when that time is right for you to do the refinance, then we look at using some of those funds to put back into the bank, right? I mean, not into the bank, into your more permanent financing. And an article just came out from Housing Wire saying a typical down payment is 10% smaller than it was a year ago, right? So that's a big number. And that's why, and we're going to talk about all the different loan types on Saturday, because I think it's important that we review those. But that's why you're also seeing right now, probably the most popular loan out there right now is an FHA loan, James, Federal Housing Administration. It's a government insured loan. And I think that's why you're seeing that so much, because it's a lower down payment, but it gives you higher ratios. So you could still buy more house with less money. So there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes that we're still trying to get through. But, again, kind of excited about what we've been telling folks and that is you don't have to put a whole bunch of money up front. It's
Okay.
not like it was years ago, a pre-pandemic, James, where if you put 20%, your rate was 3/4 or of a percent less than it was if you put down 3.5%. We're not seeing that right now at all.
Okay, so if I'm a renter, I'm a married couple, we've been renting and we're tired of just throwing our money away, and we've been trying to get into a house, and we
Yeah.
finally are in the financial position to do it. What is the cost? What is going to be the total bottom line it would take to have that conversation and get in a decent sized house?
Zero. I mean, to have the conversation, it's nothing. And that's one of the things that right now we're seeing, and people are going to snapsendandsave.com or they're going to mortgagegumbo.com. The conversation's free, right? And look, I talked to someone yesterday and told them you're not ready yet. Here's what you've got to go do. But it was a free credit report, free credit pull, soft pull at that. And I was able to educate them on here's what you need to go do. And look, sometimes I'm able to help people get their score up 50 points and it's $100. Sometimes you can't, but the guessing game needs to be eliminated at this point. Nobody right now should be sitting on the sideline wondering, should I buy a home, right? Especially the can I, because now we've got the tools to be able to help you with that and tell you, no, you can't, but here's how you can. And I think that's the biggest feedback we get from folks even though you got to tell somebody we can't help you, we don't turn them down. We just tell you we can't help you right now, but here's what you need to go do. And that's where a lot of the loans we're doing today, James, are folks that we've helped over the last couple of years. And they going, I don't care that the rate's 6.5%. I went and busted my rear end to get my credit back in check. I'm ready to buy now. We'll figure everything else out later. And that's what we kind of explaining to folks. That's why these folks who are coming in buying now, they're going to see the returns a lot more than the folks who are waiting for that rate to come down, because they're going to be all competing for that same house. And home values are going to start going back up. They will go back up, right? It's just a matter of how quick, and meaning everybody's going to be competing for that house. It's supply and demand, right? And we already know there's low inventory, and we know there's not much inventory coming because we know what all the stuff is. We're down 36% on permits across the country. So we know permits are down a third. So where's it going to come from?
Is there really such thing as getting in a house with nothing down? I know there's like rural development loans and VA loans, but
VA and rural development's no money down. And even FHA. Look, if you get a gift, there's different ways to do FHA loans. So there's different options out there. But right now, what people are taking advantage of, and this is what's going to be the first thing that's going to go away. A lot of people, James, are buying houses right now, even though it's a 6.5% rate. They wouldn't be able to buy at 5% or 5.5%. Not from an affordability as far as what the payment is, James. They don't have the down payment money and the closing cost money. So the insurance, the taxes, and all that. So by them buying now and getting that seller to pay that for them now, well, then when you refinance, you don't have to come out of pocket with anything. So they're able to buy now. So there's a lot of folks out there who are thinking, I'm going to wait when rates are 5.5 or whatever they're going to go to. Well, you're going to need that much more money. And I'll be able to show you why a 6.5% rate right now is going to be cheaper for you than a 5.5% rate down the road. Not only are you going to pay more for the house, but when you're not getting those closing costs and all those concessions on your side, and you got to come out of pocket with that, that affects your affordability, James, more than anything, right? Because now I can't afford that house because I can't afford the insurance on that home. Whereas now if the seller's paying it, we're able to win in this market.
So you say people are using FHAs or leaning on those a lot, and that was in reference to the statistic about how the average down payment is down. Now, does the average down payment actually go down, or are people just using different loans to artificially make that number come down?
Yeah, I think they're using just different loan types, right? Like FHA loans are up just over year over year.
What's the down payment requirement on a FHA loan?
3.5%.
And that's the popular one that's driving these numbers.
Yeah, because the ratios are a lot higher. What that means is you can afford more housing, and whereas in a conventional loan, maybe you can only go up to, depending on your credit score, like a 45% debt to income ratio on the back end. What that means is all your payments, your car loans, and all that. Whereas with FHA, we could go to 55. On VA, we could go to 60. Right. So there's a lot of different options there. So the government loans right now are offering a little bit more. So that's what we're looking at doing and helping people out. And again, when the time comes, we'll refinance you out of that program when it makes sense.
So I'm just trying to do some quick math here. If I'm getting a starter home, say $200,000,
yep.
And I use FHA, my down payment's going to be around $7,000.
Yep, that's
and
correct.
Then there's all kinds of little fees and insurance and
yeah, I mean you got your taxes and insurances, or you're in a flood zone and all that stuff. So you're probably looking at another now with insurances, you're probably looking at another 3% or so. So that's where you start getting all that stuff paid for by the seller. So that way, that's all you're coming out of pocket with, right? So that's where the win comes in there. That's why the FHA loan, we're seeing a lot more of that. And so we look at all those options. That's why we recommend go to snapsendandsave.com. We look at that. But James, I think what we'll do is Saturday, we're going to dive in a lot more, and we're going to break each one of these programs down to where we make sure the audience explains when, why, and how should you use each particular loan type, right? And then there's programs within it, but why we should use the different loan types from there. So with that being said,
wait, can I follow one more balloon here? Okay, one more thought balloon, because I want to do this on Saturday, and I thought of this yesterday, and I forgot to tell you before the show. We need to go back and look at the difference again, because we haven't done this in a year, of the difference between buying a house on the North Shore and the South Shore, because I think the change in insurance is so drastic that it has altered that math.
Yeah.
And so I can think of a couple of personal friends of mine, two couples, they're both married.
Okay.
And they're looking to buy a house, and that's part of the discussion, buying on the North Shore versus the South Shore, because there's always been the crime, there's always been the property values, there's always been the roads, there's always been the schools.
Yeah.
But now insurance has tipped the scales for some people, and I think it might be tipping the scales for two of my married couple friends.
Got somebody this week. You talk about insurance, James. We got a customer right now under contract, $190,000 house, and the insurance is $6,000. I mean, come on. Can't do it. You can't do it. It's done. It's a done deal. So, that's the heartbreaking part, right? Right now, it's not about rates. So, listeners, if rates is what's keeping you on the sideline, you're very mistaken, and maybe new to the show. But rates should be the last thing. Rates we can fix and adjust and do different things. Right now, it's the insurance. So that's why we need to be having these conversations. We'll figure out, obviously, you're going to get the best rate that you qualify, but we got to look at all of these other factors that you could take advantage of. So, Parker, you are the man. And I will see you Saturday, Gumbo Nation. Hey, home away from the show, 504-207-7600, or go to snapsendandsave.com. Free, no cost, no obligation, just answers on a free soft poll to let you know what you may or may not qualify for. Till Saturday, keep stirring the pot.